All right, let's do it. Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Omni-Channel Digital Advertising Best Practices. I'm your host, Erin Martin, the VP of Marketing here at Netsertive, and I'm joined by Colin Milliken, the Senior Director of Business Development at the Trade Desk. Colin, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to discussing Omni-Channel and everything else we have in store.
Awesome. And just a few reminders, as always, we're happy to answer some questions throughout if you have anything. So you can pop those into the QA window. We'll try to get through things as we have content throughout the kind of 40 to 45 minutes today as well. And then as always, we'll get you guys recording and the slides after, so you'll have those as well. So today we're going to touch on what is the omni-channel opportunity that a lot of brands are missing out on, the benefits of the approach, and then dive into some specific channels to provide some background into what might make sense to fold in for your brand. It'll be a great conversation, and I think it's a topic that I'm really excited about, especially for multi-location and franchise brands, because so often there is smaller budgets at the local level, which leaves a lot of brands just kind of falling back on the walled gardens of Google and Meta when it comes to their advertising mix. And there's so many more channels and opportunities out there that can make sense for your brand if you can operationalize it. That helps with both with brand awareness and local lead gen. So we're going to dive into all of that today, which will be great. And then do you want to share a quick note on the Trade Desk and Netsertive before we get to the good stuff? The Trade Desk is a industry leading DSP and a long-term partner of Netsertive. So Colin, I'll let you give a quick note on the Trade Desk.
Yeah, thanks. And we promise this is the one Trade Desk specific slide, so this isn't going to be a Trade Desk pitch, but I do think we're a really helpful reference point. As Aaron mentioned, we're the largest independent demand side platform. So for our purposes today, I think the most important thing to remember is that we're only aligned with the buy side, meaning we don't own any inventory. We don't have any incentive to direct marketing budgets to a given publisher, for example. So we're really focused on just helping our clients, which are agencies like Netsertive, and by extension, probably the people on this call, so the marketers themselves, make the best decisions. So that's what we say when we say demand side platform or only representing the buy side, is we're just aligned with helping you use your dollars most effectively.
Love it. And yeah, like I said, we've worked with the Trade Desk for a long time now. We have a joint integration that allows us to take advantage of the Trade Desk capabilities within our own platform, so that you have that one kind of marketing command center for digital marketing and advertising all in one place. So I would say Trade Desk is the real deal. There are a lot of DSPs and ad networks out there, but you guys are really top notch. So I'm excited to have you as a partner and on today. And then quick note on Netsertive, if you're not already familiar, we're a digital marketing partner that can help you take control back of your brand marketing at that local level to ensure that you have the strategic partner and the workflows and the execution in place for your brand's local marketing across any channel or platform. And as always, if you have questions, we're here and would love to chat more. So let's dive in. So to kick it off, I think, Colin, can you just share a little bit more about omni-channel advertising and the opportunity and why it's important on your end?
Yeah, and this is, I think, really the best place to start. So I'll talk through two key concepts here, and then if anyone has questions, I'm happy to address them immediately. But so on the left, we have this concept of you as a consumer and where you spend your time. And in this case, it's reachable by digital ads. So you can kind of see these icons here. This is time when you're maybe scrolling the news during the morning, you're listening to a podcast or streaming audio, or you're at home watching TV in the evening at any connected TV app. So this is the first key concept of that consumers are spending most of their time on the open internet, which I'll define in a second. But as Aaron mentioned, they're spending still an important piece of time, so roughly 30 to 40%, depending on the, how the study cuts demographically. They're spending this time with the walled gardens. So this is that concept of working directly with Facebook, Meta, if you want to show ads on Instagram, or working with Google to show ads on YouTube. They're self-contained systems. They're owned and operated by Meta and Google. If you want to work with them, you work with them. They, take some data and inputs in. They optimize the campaign, and they tell you, how things performed. That's a little bit different than the approach that we take with the open internet. So the open internet, as kind of like a rough definition, is this group, informal and formal group of all the different publishers, advertisers, data partners, measurement partners that make advertising possible across all these different channels and different screens. So the key benefit for you and to recognize here as a consumer is that you spend a lot of time on the open internet, but we know, key concept number two, that marketers spend it's kind of a similar number, roughly 60% of their budget with the walled gardens. So there's this inversion between where consumers are reachable and spending their time and where marketers are spending their dollars today. So whenever we see an inversion or a discrepancy here, we see opportunity. So that's what I'm really excited to talk about today is the omni-channel opportunity to reach all these consumers and channels that you see in blue on the left. That's where we'll be focused today.
Yeah, and we always say you need to understand your audience and where they are, whether that's offline or online, and then figure out how to reach them with that right message, right channel, right time. And so that's the whole open internet that brands often miss and just, get stuck in the usual playbook of Meta and Google. And so I think one also challenge, along with that idea of, oh, we have a limited local budget that we can only spend on a few channels. There's also just like right now, we know leads are softening. How do we tackle paid media and stand out in the crowd when there's so much digital noise happening right now? A lot of competition, rising ad costs, and then just that general, we are like banner blindness at this point. So I think that's one of the challenges too, is how to just jump in and tackle that piece. So that's what we'll jump in today. And really kind of as we're alluding to, the answer is omni-channel, which is basically like, let's be more efficient and effective and smarter with how we're reaching and engaging with our best potential new customers online.
Yeah, exactly. I would reiterate that, we're making some assumptions here. Of course, you as a marketer, you probably have some idea of who you want to target, right? Hopefully you're working with a service provider, so an agency, maybe like Netsertive. So generally what you want to do. You want to go through everything that we'll talk to today with all these different channels. So how do we kind of bring all these desires and like vague notions together? I think, as Aaron said, it's this concept of omni-channel. So omni-channel for me is kind of a catch-all: planning, targeting, executing, optimizing, and then reporting on a given campaign that operates across multiple channels. So I know we'll get into a lot more details, but it's omni-channel is this concept that we can help you operationalize, and that's what we'll go into today.
Yeah, and especially when, paid media feels hard today, I think it's one of those things where, if you're slightly off on targeting, slightly off on frequency, or under or over serving, or missing a key channel, like that all can add up. And so you shouldn't just give up on paid media and, explore other things. Like there are efficiencies to be gained and some low-hanging fruit. So we'll jump into all of that.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll walk through the story here. I would just reiterate that the concept of working with a DSP like the Trade Desk or doing omni-channel advertising is to get away from the spray and pray, or giving a set budget to your local TV station and saying, go give me some ads, right? It's about being intentional and trying to control what you're doing with your marketing strategy. Of course, you're going to lean very heavily on your service and agency partners to do this, and so don't feel intimidated that you have to remember everything here. But I think that's a really important concept, that we're just trying to be really intentional And kind of like the through line here that Aaron just mentioned is targeting audiences first, or starting with audiences. So this fictional or realistic, but example scenario of targeting this given audience, maybe you're targeting someone to come visit your store or come visit your auto dealership or subscribe for your online product. We'll walk through just a little bit of what this might look like throughout the day. And this is all possible and controllable when you run omni-channel campaigns through the trade desk and some of our competitors. So, for example, this person is commuting to work. Maybe they're listening to a podcast or streaming audio, and we can target them with a specific ad for your coffee company in this example. They're at work, they're just kind of getting set up for the day, they're browsing the news or browsing around on their laptop. We can have another ad there, a complimentary ad. At some point in the day, maybe they pull out their tablet, they're taking a lunch break, right? They're doing some personal time, another ad there. And then on the way home, they're driving past a bus stop or they're in a transport hub, right, with tons of digital screens, almost all of which are connected and accessible via the trade desk and this kind of concept of programmatic. We can have another complimentary ad there. And then they're unwinding throughout the day or in the evening after the day, and they're watching their favorite subscription app with some ads. So Peacock, HBO, Netflix, Disney, tons of live sports examples. All of that are potential ad impressions that we can help you serve and orchestrate your ad. And I think we'll come back to this concept of control in a second, but I think that's the main takeaway here are kind of twofold. One is the inventory access that you have. So when you want to set up and run omni-channel campaigns, your agency and service provider can help you do that across all these screens. But the second key concept is they can actually help you control it. So you're not just shifting your budget to a given channel or a given partner, you're centralizing it and you are making the decision about maybe how much money is being spent in which physical area and how much is being spent per channel. So all of that kind of combines into helping you create a really effective marketing campaign and then being able to report back on it.
Yeah, and when I look at this beautiful digital journey, I think the thing that sticks out on what's missing oftentimes is all of these creative variations across a few additional channels. You don't have to have like 10 different channels in the mix to be doing omni-channel right. It's just selecting the core and maybe adding one or two more in, and then creative variations that you can localize at play that can make all the difference. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And at the base of it, it's also because you're thinking about people-based marketing kind of, and I know we'll get into the unified ID and everything that the trade desk can do there, but you're really focusing on finding that one person where they live, the message at the right time.
And so this is some stats. So we just talked a little bit about, the consumer facing journey, if you will, for, how you might interact with screens and everything that's available. We always like to, have this discussion of consumers don't have their audio brain and their CTV brain and their Google search brain. They just have their experience, right? So if you're available on all these different channels, one, of course, it gives you the opportunity to get your message out there and drive some performance, whether that's sales, subscriptions, visits, etc. But on the left-hand side, it improves the overall consumer experience. So we've done neuro lab studies in controlled environments where we, attach sensors to people's brains and heart rate monitor and have them, go through all these studies. All that kind of beside the point, but the main takeaway is that when a consumer is advertised to on multiple channels in a controlled way, they have a positive brand sentiment. So meaning they appreciate, they feel understood by being reached where they are throughout the day, rather than this trope of an example being bombarded with 5 TV ads in the same 20-minute special, right? So we have this consumer positive experience when you run omni-channel campaigns. But from a marketer's perspective on the right-hand side here, and this is data from the Trade Desk's own brand marketing campaigns where we use our own technology. From from a marketing perspective, running multiple channels together improves overall performance. So you can see on the right, 5 channels increases conversion rate by 77%. This is true for pretty much every campaign that we run this on, that conversion rate improves, which is of course good. Time to conversion, meaning the time it takes someone to see your ad and then purchase your service, goes down, which is a good thing. And then a lot of times in e-commerce, the overall order value, so the cart value, the purchase value improves, which is, of course, all contributing to this overall purpose of advertising or marketing in general, which is to drive business outcomes, right? It's to drive sales and revenue.
Yeah, and this, I think specifically on the left hits me hard because I see this in the wild all the time. I visit so many websites, specifically multi-location and franchise brand websites, where then I end up in people's funnel because I've gone there and I see the same ad or message on the same platform all the time. Like, holy cow. Like, if you have a limited budget already, like, do not kill someone with that same ad on one channel. Like, it is so annoying because I've seen it. It just leads to a negative experience as opposed to, you know, not only a positive and that brand awareness and consideration, but I think there's a ton of opportunity of making sure that you change up that creative and have the right type of message for where they are in the funnel. And especially, I have to say, I see this on the Fran Dev side a ton, not as much on the consumer marketing side, but that kind of fatigue of the same thing is a big opportunity to tackle as well. All right, and then I know the next one, you've got a little case study to share with us.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure we touched on this concept that we mentioned at the very beginning of audience-based buying.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of you, in almost all cases, you as a business owner, franchise owner, you know, a marketer, you have some idea of who your core customers are. We would refer to that as first-party data. Maybe it's CRM data. At its really, you know, its most simple form, you probably have a list of email addresses of people who have subscribed or purchased your product, purchased in the past, but you know haven't renewed recently. Maybe they visited your store, your website, etc. Right? You have some sort of notion of who your best or highest quality customers are in most cases. So the important part is that using this first party data, using this CRM data can and should be the foundation for all of your marketing strategy in general. And programmatic lends itself particularly well to using that data to set up and plan a campaign before it even goes live. But then to optimize it throughout and then pull all that information through and reporting to tell you who you're reaching, what their conversion rates are, etc. So what you have on the screen is just an example case study. I put this one or I included this because it mentions Unified ID 2.0, which we don't need to go into the details too much, but in layman's terms, it's just a privacy safe way that the trade desk and the entire open internet helps marketers, data providers, measurement providers transform an email address, so a known customer, into a targetable identifier across all these different screens. So you can imagine there's a lot of technological complexity that goes into turning in, you know, Cullen Milliken at Gmail into a podcast targetable ad and something that I can see when I'm watching live sports on Peacock, for example. So if you're making any notes, anything to ask your agency partner after this, I think you can jot down CRM data and Unified ID 2.0 because they're both crucial ways that you can help tune your campaign before it even goes live. And I can say more about that, but I'll let you add in any context, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And this kind of gets into the how-to, which is our next section. Like, how do you get started? How do you take advantage of this? And so, Colin, I was wondering if you could just kick us off on with your experience, like what's really needed at the core of it to get started.
Yeah, I think you know, I probably made things sound kind of complex throughout, probably unintentionally using a lot of jargon, but I really actually do think it's really simple, and that's what's above the line here. I think there are really only two essential pieces to getting started with omni-channel advertising. The first is you have to have a way to access it, right? So you need to have an avenue into a partner like the trade desk. The most common way is going through agencies and our partners. So that one's not necessarily difficult. Hopefully, we all have trusted agency partners. So certainly, you can ask them about how you get started in programmatic. The second is this idea of we need to have a pretty clear understanding of what we're trying to do. I think from a business perspective, you can boil it down to it's really simple. We want to increase profitability. We want to increase revenue. Maybe we want to improve the product, right? We want to improve customer experience, etc. But we need to be able to translate that into something that your service or agency provider can use to set up the actual campaign. So, in other words, we need to have a good idea of what success would look like, and we need to communicate that to our agency. How you don't do this is say, hey, I'm driving X number of clicks for my Google search campaign. I think clicks are good for my business, so please increase my clicks. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about getting really specific about what are the business outcomes you're trying to drive. I want to drive X more people into my store next week than the previous week. I want to drive Y number more subscriptions this month than last month, etc. So we want to take the true business outcomes, the things that we actually care about, not the proxies like clicks, and bring that into the overall planning discussion. So I've said it was simple and then I talked for a while, but I think really just to simplify it, work with an agency to get access to someone who has programmatic expertise, and then have a good understanding of where you'd like to start. What are you ultimately trying to achieve with your marketing strategy? And then everything else falls in line after you've figured those two things out.
Yeah, and I think that call out on what's your end business goals really matter because so often we'll hear, oh, well, we've got, a cost per lead goal of this, or our goal is to lower our cost per lead. And it's like, okay, that's a great, proxy goal metric to be also monitoring and working towards and naturally want to reduce. But at the end of the day, it's revenue. So we need a true business outcome to be circling around for sure. And then I think also just, I mean, as a marketer, we want everyone to understand, their actual audience, who are we trying to reach, and any data we can bring to the party to inform that is great. Same with historical benchmarks, like you have a clear goal of where you want to go. Then if we can see where we're at, then we can understand what's the path and the dots to connect those two. So that's something where Netsertive can help out and help guide that. But you have to also, if you're doing it on your own, you need to understand where you are to also where you need to go and hook those up as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And then diving into some more how-tos, I know that audience piece, like who are we reaching, is a big one.
Yeah, so we can go through the audiences, inventory, AI optimization, and then reporting. So we'll spend a couple minutes going through each. The thing I'll introduce here with relation to audiences, but then come back to with AI, is that there's so much data in this industry. The Trade Desk sees a trillion ad opportunities per day, a trillion ad opportunities with tons of data associated with each opportunity. So when you really squeeze that down and filter out what you as a person on this call need to purchase for your given company, it's probably maybe 100 ads per day, right? So we have to help you squeeze down a trillion opportunities into 100 delivered impressions. So the challenge, of course, and why we exist and we're a public company is we're really good at turning that massive trillion opportunities into the highest quality 100 impressions that we deliver for your brand. The most important way or the foundational way we do this is by using audience data, so your first party data. Don't worry if you don't have access to it for whatever reason. I'll talk about third-party data in a second. But first-party data helps us to tune the entire bidding strategy for which impressions you want to purchase and ultimately, deliver, because everything is based off of audience. We have tons of capabilities in platform, which we don't need to go into, but suffice it to say that everything is based off of modeling what you tell us are your most valuable customers, for example. So if you give us a list of people who have visited your gym over the past month, and you say, I want to drive new visits to my gym, new in-person subscriptions, onboard that data into the trade desk and use that to build your future campaigns. So that's the core piece of this, and hopefully the main takeaway is to really start thinking about how you can activate your data, of course, through programmatic and the trade desk, but probably your other partners as well. It's something, the entire industry comes back to all the time. But I also do want to touch on the third-party data piece, which is if you don't have tons of first-party data, maybe you're a new business, right? You just for whatever reason you don't have much available. There is this entire ecosystem of data providers and optimization companies like the Trade Desk to help you still be performant and drive to those business outcomes. So we have this case study on our website, which we can find afterwards, but it's with Bare Minerals. They're a beauty store. So they wanted to drive in-person visits to their store. They, in a unique way, they chose to do digital out of home, which is an awareness-based channel typically, to drive these visits. So they did some geolocating around stores. So they targeted people and billboards only around those physical stores. But they supplemented this channel with tons of third-party data that our partners provided. So overall, they saw a lift in in-store sales visits. They used multiple partners, including a partner to help them track how many people saw ads and then came in store in a statistically significant way, right? But everything was based around trying to understand where their audience might be. So trying to be complementary between first and third-party data, but then also thinking about the broader strategy of where they are geographically.
And that third-party data piece I love because I think often marketers are still missing really nailing the persona, audience segments piece, like really getting that down and just trying to better understand and know your customer is always a challenge. And so there's not only the opportunity to use this third-party data to reach the right customers, but also just learn about them. So for example, through the tools that you just mentioned, you can access, retail purchase behavior and those other third-party data segments that reveal some of the lifetime and shopping behaviors of your customers that then can inform, how are you reaching more people with those characteristics? So for example, you could look at your customer base and find out, oh, they're actually really eco-friendly conscious and like an eco-friendly shopper, or they're all frequent travelers. And just think about the opportunities that knowledge then opens up with that information. So you can better target and find the right people, but then you just also know something differently about your customer that could totally inform just marketing strategy. Like, what would you do differently if you knew that your, customer base was a frequent flyer or eco-friendly person? That would inform partnerships, different campaigns or things that you could run. So there's so much here to just learn in addition to informing the digital ad strategy that I love, the audience piece of this.
That's great. Yes. Thank you for bringing up retail. It's an excellent use case, which if anyone is interested in talking about retail data, maybe put it in the Q&A and we can come back to that. But yeah, very interesting and a newer capability for the open internet as a whole.
Yeah, so much juicy nuggets there, as I like to say. Cool. All right. And then the next one is talking a little bit more about quality inventory.
Yeah, I think so. Inventory, our way of saying where do your ads show up? Right, there are multiple channels. I've mentioned these in the past, but it's pretty easy, I think, just conceptually to think about a podcast ad or to be watching TV and you see an ad for a given brand, right? It's of course both of those channels, but it's also display and online video. So videos that show up for 15 seconds before you watch another video when you're watching the news or something like that. And then, of course, I just mentioned digital out of home. So these transit hubs or bus stop type of screens that are all addressable, which means that we can apply an audience to do the targeting. Premium inventory, I think, is really important for us to remember. With a little bit of a story about live sports. So live sports, when you do your consumer research, wanting to be able to watch live events and live sports is the number one reason why people have maintained their cable subscriptions.
Hmm.
We, of course, know that people are canceling their cable subscriptions with greater velocity. They're moving their eyeballs, so to speak. They're just spending more time on smart TVs and connected TV. But the number one reason they always held on to cable is because of live events. That has really changed almost seismically over the last 5 years, where all these live sports, I should say, most of these live sports are available on connected TV. So the Olympics, NFL playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, and NBA playoffs, the Oscars, all of these events are able to be streamed on connected TV platforms via these apps. And that's really important for you because you're recognizing as a marketer that, hey, I can be present in these areas, but I don't have to spend $5 million to do a national buy for the Oscars. I can
Yeah.
just target people with a creative messaging, to Aaron's point earlier, within my specific region, maybe my county or my state, um, with a relevant ad to the Oscars, for example. So there's a lot here in terms of inventory control and making sure it's brand safe. But I think that one of the main takeaways is that virtually everything that you see and interact with as a consumer is addressable in terms of you can apply an audience to it, which means you can report on it, which means you can get better, you can learn more about your customer and improve your overall business outcomes.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things here for me too is that you can get on quality inventory, but it's not just about getting on a show you want or on the inventory you want. Like it's almost like, again, remember, we're trying to reach the right person and then on wherever they are, quality inventory of where they live. Not like, oftentimes I'll hear, oh, well, I want to be on ESPN, I want to be on Duck Dynasty, I don't know, I want to be on XYZ. And it's like, well, that's great. Like maybe your audience is there, but let's find where your audience is and then reach them wherever they are. So I think that's like one of those small things that can also lead you sideways is if you're just like gung ho on I need to be here. It's like, well, but do you? Like maybe rethink that. Like let's get on quality inventory, but like let's actually find out where your audience is.
Yeah, I think that that's a great example and really highlights the importance of working with an agency partner who can help you analyze these decisions. So if you want to compare everyone who's watching Duck Dynasty tomorrow night versus your core audience of who you really think you should be targeting or showing ads to, uh, all of that data comes through in standard reporting. So you can just look at what's the actual impact, which does perform better. And to your point earlier, I think that's where this really becomes a beneficial process because you learn more the more that you do to inform your future strategies. So who knows? Maybe Duck Dynasty happens to be a perfect fit. But maybe not, right? Maybe the audience actually is the key performance driver for you, and that's something that will be helpful for you to know for your overall business.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And then, we can't make it through any presentation these days without talking about AI. So,
Yeah, yes, and trying to avoid the buzzwords as much as possible, because we've all heard enough about AI. There are certain environments where AI machine learning does really, really well, and that's environments where there's tons of data. So thinking back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, the Trade Desk sees 1 trillion impressions per day, each with tons of data associated. Uh, we have really powerful engines to do a lot of the tuning, the automatic tuning for you, whether it's the agency partner or you're working with us directly, to help you make decisions and optimize on your behalf, so that the humans in the equation, whether it's the agency or you as a marketer, can focus on the strategy. So this is the kind of like the human and machine interplay that has always been present in our company specifically, but it's the ability to have the human think about the strategy and asking the right questions, and then turning to the machines to execute it or to help you pull that information from reporting. So there's probably a lot I can say, and Aaron, feel free to prompt me if you feel like I'm missing something, but suffice it to say that we have tons of horsepower, if you will, to help us go into trimming those impressions down so you get the right and the best 100 impressions per day, that you don't really have to do anything to to activate that. You just have to tell us what you want to do and hopefully give us some data to get us started.
Yeah, and I think the key is when you're talking about the data set that you're feeding any AI model or AI, is that again, if you're stuck in silos, then you can't have a holistic data set that's optimizing correctly. And that's where getting stuck in a siloed execution, just with Google and Meta, can go wrong. Like Google is not going to tell you to send money to Meta and vice versa. And so if you can break down those walls and have a holistic, omni-channel kind of data set that you're working with, where you've got, Google, you've got Meta, programmatic display in there, like all of these things together holistically that you're optimizing on top of, whether it's with Netsertive or a different partner, like that's when AI can do its thing best. And that's where it's, I think, being held back for a lot of multi-location brands right now. It's not only the pain of, pulling the reporting from each platform and trying to like stitch the story together, but AI cannot do its thing and you cannot get the best results if you're not optimizing holistically, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
back
I think
to
that's a great point. A benefit.
breaking those silos down.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right. And then speaking of measurement, this is kind of the last big one we got on this section.
Yeah, so measurement really important. I mentioned this use case before, or we talked about the Duck Dynasty versus audience use case. You can imagine that there are 100 given questions that you can try to answer with the data that we make available in standard reporting. So every given day, if you have a question about what's performing well and what's not, pulling that from the platform and analyzing it is not the hard part of the equation. The hard part of the equation is working with your agency partner to interpret and determine your long-term strategy based on that information. So programmatic lends itself really well to giving you tons of data, tons of inputs, and giving you some example outputs for what you should be doing, but really giving you the tools to work with your agency to determine what should I be doing in the future. That's all thinking about these channels that are centralized, or omni-channel campaigns that are centralized within the trade desk. But we also do work with tons of third-party partners, which I think Aaron wanted to touch on. But these are really anyone who's involved in the industry in this open internet, that can help you measure beyond a proxy metric towards your real business outcomes.
Yeah, and we love those partners because that's where you can do in-store traffic measurement, brand lift studies. I mean, there's just so many cool things that can be done to help fill any measurement gap that marketers have. So, a very cool kind of ecosystem that's available there as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I know we got about 5-7 minutes to take us on home, and we did want to touch on a few of those just additional channels, for some inspiration and ideas for you guys. Again, to the point of like, it's not always trying to, have like this 10 touch point perfect digital journey. Like we're striving towards that, but sometimes it's just knowing your audience and one additional channel where they live. So we'll touch on some of those real quick before closing us out, starting with digital out of home.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good reminder that everything we're talking about isn't all or nothing. It's not like you have to do every recommendation we've just mentioned or don't even get started, right? It's a step process. It probably starts with a few of the channels that we'll finish on, but hopefully you come away with a few ideas or a couple takeaways by each channel, because you ultimately know your business the best, right? So or you might have a hypothesis that digital out of home ads, for example, are really interesting for you. So most of the digital screens that you walk around and see, whether it's on a bus stop, transport hub, airports, even in grocery stores these days, or convenience stores, pretty much all of those are available and addressable, meaning you can apply an audience. So maybe one idea for the people on the call is to think about, are there any physical events going on in my city or my area, the big game, that I want to be present on? If people are walking by, there's this one-to-many concept, meaning you have one ad that can be seen by hundreds of people walking by. I think that idea and thinking through, hey, can this help me, like Bare Minerals, drive people to actually go visit my store because it's 4 blocks away and up to the right, right? Or if anyone's a larger travel brand, should I be in airports? Should I be on these screens so that the first thing that I see when I go down the escalator of whatever central airport is an ad for my given company? So digital out of home, great for awareness and anything that's really important to be physically present, which may seem obvious, but I think it's just a good starter idea.
Yeah, and I think this one's very cool too, because one big trend I think that everyone's been feeling is the pendulum swing after COVID from paid media working so well as like the main local marketing playbook. And now, again, like, seeing all the competition, softening leads, people have swung back to a lot of grassroots marketing, how to be that mayor of your market, really reinforcing those kind of like boots on the ground stuff. And again, this is a perfect way. You don't necessarily think of, digital out of home as grassroots marketing, but when you're physically out there, like that is. So you can scale almost grassroots using this type of channel, which I think is very cool.
Definitely.
The next one we've got, I think, is one of my favorites, connected TV.
So CTV, I probably use this in too many of my examples today, but I think the an important thing to remember is that CTV is a highly engaged and it's an emotional environment. Our CEO makes this joke that no one's ever cried from a banner ad, right? But people tear up watching, puppies float around in whatever beer commercial that was or is. There are really touching cultural moments that are present on TV, and it's not just about the content. Yes, the Super Bowl is kind of like the main commercial engine for this, but that extends throughout the entire medium. So the key points here are premium partners. So if you want to show ads on Netflix and Peacock, etc., that's possible, and you can do targeting. But also, if you do know that local TV works for you and you've been getting really inexpensive impressions for the last few years through your cable network, there is a ton of scale on the free ad-supported apps. So these are like Tubi, Fubo, Pluto, etc. Tons of advertising impressions available on those channels, and you can apply an audience there as well.
Yeah, and I love CTV so much because so often marketers want leads, like we're just chasing leads. And so oftentimes that brand awareness layer can get lost with the focus on all the lead gen specific channels. When at the end of the day, you need brand awareness. Like you have to have someone be aware of your brand before they can even consider or buy. So it's such a big piece. And this is one where I love the partnership that Netsertive and the Trade Desk has, because we can localize a brand compliant video ad to then serve across your whole network and have a system-wide brand awareness play, but then also dynamically insert local information on top of it so that it pairs that brand awareness with a local call to action, whether that you want it to be like the location page, the local phone number, local address and information or directions. Like there's a lot of capabilities there of how to drive that local action, which is pretty cool. So this one is one that I think is often underutilized and very within reach as well. And then we've got audio.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you just said, and I think it really mirrors audio as well. Just in terms of consumer time spent, so by some metrics, it's a few hours a day spent on streaming audio, including podcasts, and in marketer budgets, this is a massively underinvested channel. Which, thinking back to that very first slide, there's an inversion, there's a discrepancy between consumer time spent and marketing dollars. And that difference is opportunity for the people on this call. So audio, massively underinvested. It's a very engaged environment. I think the stat is that over a third of people listen to streaming audio the entire time they're working out. We have this case study here with Orange Theory where we help them drive in-store visits and sign up subscriptions to their studios. via a combination of geo-targeting. So we only want to target people around a radius where the studios are, but audio is the main vehicle. So focus on fitness and health podcasts is a really potentially interesting idea depending on your business, to connect that brand awareness to actual real business results.
Yeah. Yeah. And any of these case studies, we have those full examples where once we send the recording out, you can just hit reply if you want to see any of those as well.
Display and online video are kind of like the stalwarts or the roots of the programmatic industry. So I probably don't need to say much here, except to say that they're still a really important contributor to overall omni-channel campaign success. So everything we've talked about, we can certainly go in and have a performance-driven audio or CTV campaign. You will see in a recommendation from your agency to include these lower funnel strategies, especially when you have high quality first party data, because these two particular channels lend themselves really well to having first party data applied with all the brand safety permissions that the trade desk does behind the scene to help you show ads at the right time to drive the best performance for whatever your campaign is trying to achieve.
Yeah, and we don't have any visuals here, but there's also a lot of very cool creative opportunities that's available. I mean, there's things where we can make the display and video ads interactive. So to the point of like kind of banner blindness, how do you cut through that clutter? There's a lot of different things that our creative studio can do to apply that localization, but then also interactivity. So for example, you could add a video, you could add, a dynamic lottery ticker on the top that will show you like what the lottery's up to if you were a lottery advertiser or, were advertising for them, encouraging people to buy tickets. So a lot of that dynamic creative capabilities are there. Or another one is you could actually trigger a different creative ad unit to show up based off of the weather. So if you wanted to get creative on what you showed when it was raining versus super hot out, like there's so many cool things that you can do with display and video because of that just kind of nature of the inventory. You can make it really creative, which is cool.
Exactly.
And then the last one we've got is native to take us on home.
Yeah, native. It segues perfectly from what you were just mentioning of creative or high impact ad units is kind of in this category of native. Native specifically is meant to be ads that show up within the content as part of the content. So if you're scrolling through a news article on your phone, you see this kind of like window go through of I don't know, whatever ad is playing in the background. That's a native advertisement. It just means that the publisher or the content owner has done some technological work to make that more part of the core experience. So we see native perform really well when it's used with other strategies because it feels a little bit more natural. So if you're ever thinking, how do I go beyond display, for example? Native is a good next step because a lot of the partners will help you create the creative assets or update them. And then they're just in this slightly more performant medium.
Yeah, and both native and interactive display is one where I don't see a ton of multi-location or franchise brands taking advantage of it, but I'm starting to see a little bit more. I mean, I just saw one on the open web for Mr. Rooter. So franchise brands and others are starting to get into it because of that opportunity. And I was wrong. One more, mobile. Can't forget about mobile.
And mobile, is it a channel or a device?
Yeah,
Always an
a
interesting
forever debate.
conversation. But I think a good parting thought here to focus on mobile because it is generally highly personalized because there's a device ID and location based. So there's a lot of flexibility and native capabilities within the mobile device specifically, whether that's Apple or Android, that your agency partner can help you create a strategy on. Final parting thought on this, you can imagine a campaign that's running across multiple devices. So mobile phone, tablet, and a laptop, for example. Calling back to one of the benefits of reporting and transparency, you can analyze the performance by specific device, turn off the one that isn't performing well, and shift more budget to the device that is performing well. So regardless of the creative, like that, keep everything the same. Part of your agency's job and the Trade Desk AI's job is to help you shift budget to all these different small little vectors that will have a better impact on your core business outcome. So mobile is
Yeah.
an important part of that.
And I love that example because I think it's a perfect, I mean, I'm use case, like I'm on my desktop all the time, but the
Mhm.
context of me on my desktop, like I'm in work mode, like I'm not gonna like go explore things. But if I'm on my mobile phone waiting in like a kid pickup line, like I'm in a different context and ready, like I'm open to consideration and exploration. So I think that device like is very telling for the context of where your audience is showing up and what they could be doing on that device as well. All
Exactly.
right, well, we're a little bit over. I didn't see any questions come in, so that'll wrap up our time today. We're always happy to answer some stuff that comes in a little bit later. And Colin, thank you so much for your time and wisdom today. It was so awesome to have you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And
Always a pleasure.
yeah, and thanks to everyone who joined live or will be watching this on demand a little bit later. We'll have the recording and highlights out shortly, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thanks all. Bye.